Lindsay, tag me. Just joking.
Green burials on or
Off. Sarah said it's off.
Which is off?
The green burials.
Is off.
Said they couldn't make it.
Oh, they couldn't make it. So it's quite a short agenda, actually.
Yeah.
up to the chair, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. Any questions?
I like to, you'd be like, nope, nope,
Don't have time for that.
nope.
Johnny Walker's calling.
Oh yeah, I have.
Yes.
Have Scotch call.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is David Beringer. I'm happy to be.
What's that? No, she loves me.
Any water there?
Yeah, I got water for you.
Thank you.
Maybe. Yeah.
Are you ready? Okay. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Thank you. And just to clear things up, I'm not John Dooley, and that's not Janice Morrison. I don't know how that fell through the cracks. I'd like to start off with our Aboriginal Acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Tanaha, the Salix, and the Sinixt peoples, and is home to the Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honor their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. Is there any late items? None? May I have a motion to adopt the minutes of the meetings from October 21st and November the 18th, please? Councillor Page, second. Councillor Woodward. Any discussion? All in favor? Carried. Can I have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda, please? Councillor Woodward. Councillor Lachtenberg. Any discussion?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Didn't we needed to adopt both of those? Is that what we had just done? Like just we
21st and
the 21st and the 18th of November. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Sorry. My apologies.
Thank you. Now comes the public participation. And I will read the rules. City of Nelson information for public participation at Community of the Whole meetings of the City of Nelson. City Council welcomes comments of the public on issues it is dealing with or on other issues of interest to the public. Before speaking, please identify yourself, stating your name and place of residence and the issue you are bringing forward. Please limit your questions and/or comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Council will not make any decisions at this meeting about the issue you raise, but may refer them to staff to follow up. Topics raised in this session should be of broad public interest. Complaints of a personal nature will be dealt with by staff through the city's established complaints process. Thank you for taking the time to participate in this City Council meeting. Do we have anybody from the public that would like to come forward? Step up to the chair. Please state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
My name is Keith Wiley. I live in Fairview, 806 6th Street. And I'm talking about the climate emergency. I'm quite concerned. But first I'd like to thank you for listening to me, and I'd like to thank you for your hard work. I know that representing us isn't an easy job, and it's a big challenge. And so I thank you. I'm not here to make your job any easier, though, I'm afraid. I want to raise something I'm very concerned about. We are in a climate emergency right now, and you wouldn't know it. You just wouldn't know it, but we are. And what I see is that what's really bothering me is that we are procrastinating as a country. I know about procrastination. So we are procrastinating as a country and as a city about taking on real emission reductions, which is our fair share and our responsibility to the whole planet, to the people of the whole planet. And Canadians particularly have this responsibility. So our governments have been talking big. Our federal government talks big, but our emissions are still going up. You can change light bulbs all you want, but until we tackle the big structural stuff, our problem is going to still be there. Changing light bulbs and the small stuff isn't going to save us. There has to be big structural change, and some of that should involve the City of Nelson. Setting distant targets with vague plans is hopeless. Immediate action is necessary. The crisis, the emergency is now, and we need to start reducing emissions now. And the IPCC says we've got 9 years and counting down, and I take it very seriously. I think the scientists are very clear. They're getting very urgent. They've been very cautious and non-alarmist, but they're saying immediate action is necessary. This is true on the national level, and I would say the same thing to the Premier of BC, that the action is not there. I would say the same thing to the Prime Minister, and in Nelson too. It's very much like talk and log. It's a lot of talking and no real change. It's talk and burn is what we're doing right now. We have constant planning to make a plan. Consulting, talking, anything, but actually starting with the big changes. It's avoidance. It's just bloody avoidance, actually. So it's not like the changes are hard to see. It's not like we don't know what we have to do, actually. We talk about them all the time. And they're relevant to our city. Housing, transportation, and garbage. But no one, certainly not Nelson, is taking them on at the scale that the emergency demands. Nelson has done many things, but Nelson needs to step up in a bigger way, and I think Nelson, the city of Nelson is in a great position to be a leader, a national leader on this, of cities. Nelson was a mining town. Nelson was a logging town. Nelson was an apple town. Nelson was a marijuana town. Nelson can be an eco town, a leader and a destination.
Your time is up.
Really?
Yes, and I'm sorry, here's the problem. We have 5 people that want to speak tonight.
Okay.
We have 15 minutes, so sorry, I have to cut you off at 3. You're actually a little over 3. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, I had 3 concrete points to make. So
that's all right. You can put them in writing and send them to
I
us. We'd
certainly
love
will.
to see them.
Thank
Yes.
you very much.
Thank
and
you, thank you, Keith.
have a happy holiday, and let's get on with something good in the new year.
You betcha.
Thanks, Keith.
Okay, next.
They're on the agenda. They're on the agenda, I think.
Oh, hold on.
Hold on.
Hold on. This is the public participation.
You're on the agenda.
You're on the agenda.
The main agenda.
You're on the main agenda, so
minutes.
we haven't got there yet.
We get more than 5 minutes, no.
Yes.
Somebody else that wishes to speak.
Sorry. Is there somebody else that wishes to speak? Public? Yes. You're not on the agenda?
Yeah. Yes, you're
Yes, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet.
there.
Okay. Keith, you might be back up. Is there, no, not yet, Keith. Is there anybody else that would like to come forward to the public participation spot? That's not on the agenda. Okay, Keith, you got 2 more minutes. You can make your points, Keith. Yeah.
The universe has spoken, Keith.
The universe has spoken. Thanks very much. That was all the preamble, so I'm so glad I kept to make my point.
Keith, that was just to put you at ease.
Oh, good. The 3 points I want to make are, and they're very concrete, and it's easy to see what we can do. Like, number 1, build 500 net zero rental houses, affordable rental units, affordable housing. They can be absolutely net zero or just close, but they will not need natural gas lines to them, and they will be low energy in any case. Get federal money find partners, make it happen. I know there's a group in town who's trying to set up a co-op or a co-housing. There's actually 2 or 3 that need partners and need some support and some money. And I know there's federal money coming and there's provincial money. So shoot big. 500 rental units, deal with the housing affordability crisis, and make the kind of housing that sustains us in the future. This is something that Nelson should do. It's something that Canada should do. Number 2, as well as housing, transportation has to change. And this is a tough one for us. But there are lots of things to be done. A huge part of Nelson's budget goes to making facilities for cars and maintaining the roads. It's a huge part. Cut it. Cut the road maintenance budget. Cut the road budget. Use millions from that budget to improve the alternatives. Stop making it better for cars. Start making it better for the alternatives. Take the money and repurpose it. Make it better for bikes and buses. Close Baker Street to traffic. Make it a mall with a bike lane and an electric trolley, an electric bus running up and down it that shuttles to the parking lots on either end of Baker Street with parking lots. That's more symbolic than anything, but it would be a tremendous symbol and a tremendous draw for Nelson as an eco town. Demand that the province, I'll go 3 points. Demand the province create a real interurban transit system, make it easier and cheaper to get to Vancouver by bus than by car. Number 3, make the city of Nelson an even squeakier wheel. I know about the climate caucus and we're doing a lot, but put real resources into campaigning that our province and our country get behind this and provide the resource and start with the change. The emergency is now. It's not in 2050. It's right now. Every kilo of carbon we keep out of the atmosphere improves the livability of our planet in the future. Every day we do it sooner improves the livability of our future. So, as I said, have a happy holiday and let's make 2020 a really exciting year.
Thank you, Keith. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you.
We have a video. Why does this stuff always happen when I'm up here?
Go back to your seat, come back up.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is David Beringer. I'm happy to be able to address you at this opportunity. I thank you for making it possible for citizens to bring their concerns to Council once a month at the Committee of the Whole meeting. And thanks for taking this on video because as you can see, I'm about to start baking here. I do work full time as well, so I have to schedule things as I can. The reason I'm speaking to you today is because I wrote an email a few weeks ago to Council drawing your attention, I should say.
Okay. Here we go.
Okay, yeah. We
Good
can't make
evening,
it louder, so.
Council, Mayor. My name is David Beringer. I'm happy to be able to address you at this opportunity. I thank you for making it possible for citizens to bring their concerns to Council once a month at the Committee of the Whole meeting. And thanks for taking this on video because as you can see, I'm about to start baking here. I do work full time as well, so I have to schedule things as I can. The reason I'm speaking to you today is because I wrote an email a few weeks ago to Council drawing your attention, I should say, to proposed gasoline-powered leaf blower ban in the municipality of Oak Bay, part of Victoria, essentially. The municipality voted at their meeting of November 25th, it was, to refer the matter to a new climate change action committee that they have and requested that they report back by March of 2020. So I think this is the ideal opportunity now for Nelson as a smaller community, maybe able to move a little bit more quickly than a bigger community on Vancouver Island, that we could actually take some leadership and phase out our use of gas-powered leaf blowers, potentially ahead of Oak Bays. I did get some feedback from councillors, I appreciate that, and one of the suggestions was that rather than a blanket ban for everybody, the city should lead by example and phase out their use of electric leaf blowers, and then at a subsequent date say that, or they're going to extend this to all citizens and businesses in town as well. The alternatives for gas-powered leaf blowers are available. There are electric ones out there, backpack style blowers made by Steel, the same company that makes the gas-powered ones. They're getting better every year, and they now have a professional line of electric powered, not just leaf blowers, but also hedge trimmers, etc., various landscaping tools. Other cities that are doing this, the city of Portland, much larger than Nelson, has also announced that they are getting rid of their stock of roughly 300 gas-powered leaf blowers. This article was just written December 5th, 2019, so this is quite current. I guess people are thinking now in the winter months how they can improve their emissions or reduce their emissions next year for the growing season. So they are going to do it. They have a resolution that would have the city transition to quieter electric models by the beginning of 2021. So since Nelson doesn't have 300 leaf blowers, I think we can probably do a quicker transition. The reason why this is a concern is because of the pollution for me. This is not a NIMBY thing that I don't like the noise of leaf blowers, because they don't really bother me up here and uphill if Baker Street has got leaf blowers on it. I'm on Baker Street 5 days a week, and I've seen, I think, an increase in the use of gas-powered leaf blowers to blow light dustings of snow off the sidewalk, to blow leaves off, and even just to blow dust off outside the Capitol on Victoria Street. I think this is a new trend, and I think maybe we're going a little bit too far with our cleanliness. I mean, Nelson is a working town. It's not a movie set, and it's not just for tourists to stroll up and down. If there's a bit of dust on the road or a few leaves, it's not the end of the world. I also noticed when I came here to Nelson 27 years ago, I remember I spent more time on Baker Street in those days, coffee shops and walking up and down. And I saw quite a lot of business owners or employees of the various businesses sweeping leaves, sweeping the dust off, and shoveling the snow as well. So I'm not sure if something's changed recently, if some of the business owners or building owners whose responsibility it is actually maybe feel that the city's doing it so they don't need to do it anymore. And then the city, of course, needs to do it as quickly as they can. And I also noticed that the city is spending a bit more time and care with the crosswalks, with their leaf blowers as well. And I think that's important that the crosswalks be safe, ice-free, but I think it also probably can be done without a leaf blower. I'd like to keep this short. I think that one of the other reasons why I'd like this issue to be addressed is because there are a lot of plans that we have for reducing our carbon emissions, and they take a long time to write up, and then they have to be discussed and approved, and then the implementation phase is discussed, and it just drags on and on. And we are in a climate crisis right now globally. This is not something
he's
that
exceeded his
Nelson
5
may have
minutes.
noticed yet,
And
although
we've all
remembers the
received
smoke of the
David's
last
emails, and I think we're all
2
on the
years
same
ago,
page
3
on
years ago.
this one, so.
This summer we had a reprieve, but
Thank you,
the
David.
Arctic was burning. We didn't notice it.
Just on that one, I did send it to Public Works. They are looking into it.
Awesome.
There's obviously some operating things, but they'll bring that forward during the budget session. And I'm not sure if Kate's had direct conversation with them, but they are having a look at it.
Nice. Okay. Thank you.
And I did want to just point out, because I know a lot of us are all on the climate side of things, that we have to also be careful about what kind of actions we induce. Replacing things that are functional with brand new things and inducing more production of new product rather than living out the life of something we're bed. Like I can see having a policy to replace leaf blowers with electric ones as they phase out, as they end their life, but like inducing a whole bunch of new product purchases can have a serious detrimental effect on emissions.
Yeah.
So we have to take the whole thing into consideration.
the embedded carbon footprint.
The embedded carbon footprint is.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Now it's delegation time. And it's the, sorry, it's the cultural presentation. I think we have the threshold choir. Please come up. Yes, got it right here. Oh, sorry, it was Madelyn first.
Oh, thank you very much.
I'll, before you start, I'll just read the summary if you, that's all right. The Nelson Threshold Choir are a choir group that offers soothing, comforting songs in a small group of 2 to 4 singers at the bedside of those who are seriously ill or dying. They honor all spiritual paths, but have no religious affiliation. The songs are about simple messages of love, life, and heart. The Threshold Choir will perform as December's cultural presentation. Please take it away.
Thank you.
That was awesome. Brittany's crying. I was just about to nod off, as was Colin. That was spectacular. Thank you very much.
So you perform for people who are ill or dying. Is that like the kind of the mandate of the group, or do you perform in other situations? Or?
No, it's to people that are on the threshold who are dying and their families. So we go into people's homes and the facilities, Mountain Lake, the hospital, usually in small groups of 3.
Amazing work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Councillor Lachtenberg?
And I understand you take donations as well to support your work, or how do you?
We will receive donations, but it's a gift to our people we sing to. So
To us ourselves too.
Yeah, it's voluntary and it's our gift and it's free.
Okay.
Wow.
We usually sing 6 or 7 songs depending on the person that is lying there.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a presentation. We have a presentation to Madelyn Bonikowsky. Madelyn Bonikowsky, a student at LV Rogers, is putting Nelson on the map in the world of cross-country. On November 30th in Abbotsford, Madelyn took gold at the Canadian Cross-Country Championships, finishing the under-18 girls 4-kilometer race in 14 minutes and 8 seconds. Earlier in the month, Madelyn also finished ahead of over 200 other runners to win the senior girls 5-kilometer race at the BC High School Cross Country Championships. The city recognizes Madelyn for her success and thanks her for making Nelson proud. Is Madelyn here?
I don't think so.
Is anybody here on Madelyn's behalf?
I don't think so.
Oh, that's too bad.
Well, can we give Madelyn a hand?
Let's give Madelyn a hand. Wow, that's too bad.
It's a very snowy day.
Yes.
He's out there.
Your family's safe.
Yeah, she's out there skiing. Yeah.
Now we have some delegations, and first up is the Nelson and Area Economic Development Partnership, and I believe Tom and Andrea are coming to present. Tom Thompson and Andrea Wilkie are members of the Nelson and Area Economic Development Partnership, also coordinating committee. They are presenting with regard to the NAEDP's partnership structure 2018 to 2020, strategic priorities 2019-2020, and key achievements 2021 strategic goals.
Thank you all. We know that roads were bad tonight. They said only come out if it's really absolutely necessary, and we're glad that you thought this was absolutely necessary. So we just wanted to quickly run through some of the things. We normally would come in and we'll do our budget presentation in January or February when the rest of the community groups are here as well, but we wanted to just give you an update. We've just recently gone through our strategic plan and just wanted to provide some updates on that and or some of our work plan for the upcoming year. So our community, of course, we're a really strong business community, very diverse. We've got about 8 different economic sectors that drive our community, and we're really pleased that we've got so many different businesses that are around. The business community generates about $180,000 in tax income, about 25% of the total taxes that are collected by the city of Nelson, and that helps pay for all of the infrastructure and the things that we need around our community. The partnership is really a unique partnership. It's been around since 2005, and communities are still calling us about it, wondering how we make our partnership as successful as it is. It's clearly a partnership. The City of Nelson and electoral area ENF are the contributors from a financial perspective, but they also sit and help shape policy and drive some of the activities that we're working on. The Chamber of Commerce is actively involved as the first point of contact, and Community Futures is our other major administrator of the project, and also do a great job of business training and offering programs for the community in the region. So it's made up of a couple of councillors that are currently sitting with us right now. Rick Lokenberg and Keith Page are part of our council, and we've also got Andrea and myself and Tanya Finley, members of the business community. That's on a coordinating committee. We meet every month, and Andrea and I meet quite often in between that as well on different projects that we're working on. And then we have an advisory committee that meets quarterly, and that's made up of members of the business community and also just a broader cross-section of groups and organizations that are part of it. We're looking to strengthen the advisory committee as well by adding a few more business voices as we get further along in 2020. And some of the strategic priorities, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of these priorities, and then we'll get into some of the work plan coming up as well. So priorities include the business retention and expansion. We want businesses to be strong that are currently here. We try to provide programs that will assist them in staying strong and vital. But we also want to expand businesses as best as possible with sustained growth. Building our digital economy is something that we feel is really positive at this time as we start moving and transitioning from various other types of industries that might not be as strong as they had been in the past. We were wanting to build a big digital economy, which is more of a clean tech type situation and certainly positive for our region. And we've already got a great name for the digital economy that we're building. We want to continue to enhance that. And our workforce is really key. We've got a lot of people that are getting close to retirement age. Not immediately, but at some point, you know, we all strive to retire, but we also want to be able to continue to attract a younger workforce that can continue to provide long-term sustainability for our community. And that 25 to 54-year-old is something that's really important to us, and I think that we're starting to see more and more of those folks starting to migrate back to our community after maybe have gone to school here and gone off to college and now coming back here to have kids. Those are active work areas that we work on, but we also have a number of advocacy issues, including transportation, which is something that's really important. We heard Keith talk about regional public transit needs and continuing to build on those. Housing needs, not just for low income and people that are challenged to find work but still need housing, but also housing needs for a workforce, because the workforce is really important. And if we're attracting technology businesses to our community, there's a need for those people to be able to stay someplace, and obviously we've got some good programs in place already with the City of Nelson and the Regional District. We want to just continue to build on those. And then social development, including poverty reduction. We sit on a couple of different committees, including Nelson at its Best, and some communities that are involved in that, and we're pleased that we're working on that as something that we have to try to at least keep an eye on. We can't be the number one driver behind those issues, but there's a lot of people in the social sector that do a good job of that. Also, downtown and railtown development, something very key to our community, and the transition of the cannabis sector to the legal economy is very, very key to both Community Futures, the Chamber of Commerce, and our Economic Development Partnership as well.
Over to me.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Tom. So I'm just going to touch on some achievements from the past year and some progress we've made towards our strategic goals. So under business retention and expansion, often we hear from businesses that they have challenges with things like accessing capital, transporting goods, connecting with other business owners in the community. So those are some of the things that have fed our strategic plan. In terms of outcomes we've seen from the past year, one thing we've identified is that our businesses need to be prepared in the case of a natural disaster. So we've started to offer continuity planning so businesses can minimize the impact of a natural disaster and prepare themselves for recovery. And we're going to continue offering that on a quarterly basis in the upcoming year. We also launched a community investment co-op in the past year, and so that gives people the opportunity to invest their dollars locally in local businesses. So the co-op's up and running. We had over 100 members pay $1,000 to contribute to the co-op, and in the upcoming year, they're going to be looking at investing those funds in local projects. Helping businesses get up to speed and stay current on their business technology skills is really important as well. So things like staying current with point of sale systems, financial management software, online marketing. That's the kind of training we've been able to offer over the last year, and we've had really good uptake of it. Over 100 businesses have attended those training sessions. In terms of opening new businesses in our community, our community is one of several communities in BC that is piloting an entrepreneurial immigration stream. So that's for people that want to come to our area and start businesses, and we've identified specific sectors that are areas where we'd like to see businesses started. There's been some great work done around supporting the manufacturing sector and understanding their needs. So things like transporting their goods in and out of the region, building community within the manufacturing sector, and also just raising awareness of the business supports that are available have all been identified as areas where the manufacturing sector could use help. And then, as Tom was talking about, our demographics are shifting, and we need to make sure that our current businesses in the community transition to new ownership. So that's been a focus as well, is offering workshops on selling your business or for people thinking about buying a business. From a digital economy perspective, we've seen some great progress in the last year. So the Innovation Center welcomed their first tenant in mid-September, Kootenay Mountain Culture. So we're happy to finally have the first phase of that open, and we look forward to the construction continuing in that space over the upcoming year. Super pleased that Traction on Demand opened their first office in Nelson. So great example of a success story of attracting a tech company. And over and above the fact that they've hired local staff, they're also already starting to give back. So they launched a camp for kids called Bikes and Bites. where they taught kids how to code and took them mountain biking. So we look forward to seeing more programming like that from Traction and from other tech companies. In terms of building our digital economy, our library was successful with an application for funding to upgrade their technology equipment, training, and space. And so that's really going to help raise the level of people throughout our community in terms of having the skills to use technology and a place to go use it. We're partnering with other communities in the region to develop an app that uses open data to share transportation information. And then starting to raise our profile as a tech hub. We were featured by CBC in their Small Town Tech Jobs article. So we're getting more and more on the map. From a workforce perspective, I'll start with Pacific Insight. So that's something we've recognized as well, is we need to keep an eye on key employers in our community that are potentially at risk of closing, and supporting the employees through those businesses to transition to new jobs, but also look at the opportunity there. We've got buildings like CanFilter and Pacific Insight, and what's the next opportunity for that building? And then, or what employers could potentially benefit from those staff now being on the market. Another unique piece from the workforce perspective is we're one of 11 communities in Canada that is going to be part of the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot. And what that means is we are working with local employers to set criteria for skills they need for staff, and we'll be able to endorse applicants for permanent residency to come to our community. From an advocacy perspective, I mentioned the Smart Kootenays app, just an example of something we're collaborating on to try to help improve the transportation system. Nelson at its best has done great work around poverty reduction and other initiatives in the community. Railtown development progress has been made around rezoning and bylaw amendments, and improvements at Cottonwood Park. And then the Cannabis Business Transition Initiative launched. So we've actually moved that from an advocacy area to a core goal area, in that we were successful in receiving funding from the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction. And we now have 2 full-time staff for a 2-year period to work with cannabis businesses to develop license applications, business plans, and access financing. So this is a snapshot of stats that we've started to look at to track our progress. So you'll see we're looking at things like around business retention and expansion, business licenses, employment, jobs posted in the region. Housing was initially one of our strategic goals. We've now rolled that into business retention and expansion because we recognize the economic development role around housing would be specific to workforce housing. However, we still think those stats are important, so we're highlighting those. And then some tech sector stats, over 100 businesses that have connected to fiber. And our tech and knowledge workers group is now actually closer to 900 members. You want to talk about this? Or you want me to?
Carry on.
Okay. So in terms of what are we focusing on for the upcoming year, we've made a few tweaks to our strategic priorities. So around business retention and expansion, we've recognized the success we had with Traction on Demand when they were looking at coming to the community. We brought together a group of business development service providers, so the Chamber, Community Futures, CAST, Selkirk College, IRAP, and basically sat down with them and shared with them all the different supports we could provide to them, as well as heard from them what are their barriers or what are areas where they could use help. So we want to build on that model in the upcoming year, and we're targeting meeting with 5 to 10 key businesses to sit down at a table with them and have that kind of discussion. So we're going to look at geographic distribution of those businesses, different sectors, but really see if we can move the needle with some key businesses in our community. I've already touched on the manufacturing sector, so looking at what are some findings from that research that we can help act on. From the climate change perspective, recognizing it needs to be something that's on our radar, and the potential impact from that to the economy, but also what are the opportunities? What are things that our local businesses can be innovating to help make improvements? I've touched on legal cannabis, so that's something we're going to continue to work on in the upcoming year. Key employers, so as I mentioned earlier, it's really about keeping our eye on what's going on in our community and being aware of potential changes. From a building our digital economy perspective, so continuing develop of the Innovation Center, construction's well underway. There's an event this Thursday, TechMess, that I invite you all to attend. That'll be celebrating local businesses and the local tech sector. And you'll have a chance to check out the Innovation Center as well. Continuing to put resources towards liaising with tech companies. So, you know, if people are coming here looking at relocating to our community, or tech workers are looking to be based out of here, we want to have that first point of contact who can be a welcoming face in the community and a connector. Putting more of our focus on marketing our community as a tech hub. We wanted to get some assets in place before we started telling our story, but feeling like we're now at the point where we have a story to tell. Continuing to build the digital quality of our organization. So I mentioned the library, also working with the tech club, the youth center, to make sure that there's programming in our community so everybody's skill level is improving. And then from a workforce perspective, we're going to use a model similar to the one I talked about earlier with the business panel, and it'll probably overlap, but talking to employers from a workforce perspective, making sure they're aware of all the supports available to them, but also making sure we're understanding their challenges and their needs so we can help address them. We also play a role in liaising between employers and education, so helping employers communicate what their needs are and encouraging post-secondary to be offering training in those areas. And then also just research, so making sure we truly understand what those workforce needs are and having some data on that so we can act on it. From an advocacy perspective, pretty similar to our previous year, however, we have added a part of our role is around advocating the economic impact of the natural resource sector. So, you know, helping communicate that this is a valuable sector in our region, communicate the wealth it brings to our region, the jobs it creates in the region, and really supporting business owners working in that sector to get that message out. And I'm going to pass it to Tom to talk about the Imagine Kootenay program.
So one of the key components for our economic development partnership is business attraction and also retention. And I think we have about 55 to 60% of our workforce that are currently owning businesses or looking to exit their business in the next 5 to 10 years. That's a high number, and that's not just in Nelson, that's right across the country as the demographics shift and they start getting older. We need younger people starting to come in and buy in those businesses and building opportunities that might be available on Baker Street. So we were involved in a program called Invest Kootenay for a number of years. About 4 years ago, we transitioned over to a program that also included workforce. So now it involves raising the profile of the Kootenays, connecting investors and business opportunities, stimulating investment in the region, making sure that a business doesn't close and there's another person that can come in and also look after that business and keep it from closing and expanding. Then we also wanted to continue to show that there's workforce opportunities. So if somebody's coming to a community and they've got a family, they'd like to come here, and the wife has a job as an engineer, and the husband is looking for something to do, and there may be a business opportunity available, and those things would be posted on Imagine Kootenay. It doesn't cost anything to be a part of it. Our community was one of the lead communities back in probably about 2008 when it first got involved, and now there's about 12 different partners right across the region. So it's starting to grow. It's a regional investment and attraction and investment opportunity website. So it's just nicely been updated again. So we updated it a couple of years ago and we merged the two sites. And now we've updated it just recently and brought in a local developer to just kick it up one more notch. It has some tremendous stats already, like over 67,000 website visits. There's about 9,000 job searches off of there. There's about 4 verified sales in the Nelson area alone in 2019, and about 21 different transactions that have been tracked. And we seem to be, you don't always get credit for all of the transactions, but you certainly get lots of traction and people coming in and looking at that website. So it's just one more tool in the toolbox. It's not one thing that's going to drive all of the economic development, but it's going to certainly be a key tool in making sure that businesses people are aware of our region, that there are business opportunities available, and also keep certain stores from perhaps not closing and staying alive and continuing to thrive in our downtown core. That's all for now. So that's all for this performance.
Any questions? Councillor Woodward.
Can you do that? Say that stat again of how many stores are
Well, how many people are going to possibly leave the
Retire?
stores? So just with aging demographics, about 55 to 60% of business people are planning to exit within the next 5 to 10 years. Not everybody is like the DeVito family that just continues to roll on and roll on and roll on, and they actually love being in that business, and they've been in it for 90 some odd years.
Yeah.
But not everybody wants that. Some of the kids are, and you don't just pass the business on to your kids anymore. Sometimes staff can't afford to purchase it, so you need sometimes somebody from the outside coming in and purchasing a business and then solidifying the staff and keeping the business open.
That's a very powerful stat. It's the first time I've heard that, so it's kind of like, wow.
I think someone told you once before your leadership team was.
I don't remember hearing that, but thank you very much.
Councillor Anderson?
Yeah, I just wanted to know a little bit more. Thank you for your presentation. I just wanted to know a little bit more about the Smart Kootenays transportation app and what will be sort of the application for that.
Yeah, so initially there was federal funding towards, so communities could bid a proposal and apply for funding to help address a community issue. And so the Kootenays came together, the West Kootenays, and we built out a pretty robust game plan around transportation, which I think we can all agree on is a challenge. That was a $10 million application. We weren't successful, there's very few of them. But following that, the province launched a similar funding stream, and it was, again, to help communities address an issue using technology. So we basically pared back our proposal to one specific project, and we were successful with getting $40,000 in funding from the province. Selkirk College has been managing it, and the idea is to have an app that pulls together real-time data that's available through local government and private businesses. So things like if the snowplows just passed over the road, you can look on the app and see it. So it's to help people traveling around the region have real-time data on road conditions. And the idea is it would improve the safety. So students at Selkirk College have been working to develop that. There is a beta version of it right now. Having some challenges getting access to data, which is interesting, but it's part of the process, right? Is figuring out how to overcome those barriers. So, yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I got one here. I've been dragging this thing around for a while, and so the Irish government started this campaign to bring Irish people back to Ireland that had left during the death of the Celtic Tiger.
You're going back?
Yeah.
No, I'm not going back. They don't want me. They wanted the young people.
Alex.
They wanted the young people that left that were well educated, whether they were engineers, doctors, lawyers, etc., to return. This program has been really successful, right? And the reason it's successful, of course, because there's an emotional connection to people wanting to come back. And I just wanted to give you a couple of examples of those. So you have Stuart Ross and Brad Smithson were people that started inside electronics, local people. Can Filters, the same thing applies there. Whitewater, of course, started as a society, and then there was a group of local business people, your dad and several others, that actually lifted it up to the next level, and of course it took on beyond that. Klesnikoff, Porcupine are examples. Nelson Brewing Company, you were involved in that when it was lifted to a whole new level of productivity, etc. And now, of course, Kate Elliott comes along, her and her husband, local person, and of course the Melprass brothers. So that's just some people. I can add to this list quite easily and extensively. But there's the business retention and expansion thing that you've talked about is I think this is an extension of that, because it actually says on the bottom here, make your Christmas commute shorter next year. Nice. So this guy's going back to this is in the Dublin airport. So he's coming back to Ireland, and they're asking him to return. So I know for a fact that there's numerous people from our community that have gone out into the world, and they were really smart when they left, but now they're smarter again, having been out there, and they can bring all that experience back to us. I personally would love to see a campaign like that.
We're actually thinking about that, believe it or not. Not believe it or not, because I'm not sure if you and I talked about this. But if you if you look at that, that's the key to try to getting people to come back to the Kootenays. If somebody that's lived here at one time, they'd like to come back, they're gonna start a family. They know that the Vancouver area is a beautiful place if you want urban, but they can't afford it. And they're coming back to this area, and it's a come home campaign. And it's something that we've been kicking about for the last little while. You wanna make sure that all of your infrastructure is in place before you start doing that. You start attracting too many people before you have all of the housing for them, it becomes, oh yeah, sure, you want us to come back, but there's no place to go right now. But we've got all of the zoning in place for housing, we've got some activities taking place there, and I think that the campaign could roll out at some point for sure.
Yeah, I was thinking, it probably takes a bit of work for sure to think about it, but I thought if that was to say in the Castlegar Airport, as an example, leading up to Christmas next year, like we don't have to worry about where they live or anything else at this point. We just want to know, are you interested?
Are you coming back?
Would you like to live in Trail, Nelson, Castlegar, Caslow, Soundlow, wherever? It doesn't matter. It's all a benefit to us, right? And this program, in the first Christmas that this was introduced in 2015, 1,000 people came back and started business.
Fantastic.
The very first year, so it's just a thought.
It's great, good thought.
Yeah, I like it.
Any more questions? Andrea, Tom, thank you very much.
Thank
Very good.
Thursday for Tech Mass and Business After Business at the.
Yes.
What time?
9 p.m. 5 p.m.
Open house. What's going to be really good about the Techmas thing is it's a marriage of the business after business, and the tech group meetup. So you get this.
Santa Claus.
And VR too?
And VR.
That's down on environment.
Thursday night?
Next, we have the Kootenay Lake Health Foundation. Brenna Idler of Kootenay Lake Health Foundation is presenting to council regarding the foundation's Light Up the Hospital campaign. Welcome.
So my name is June Spearman, and I'm the board chair this year, and Brina has kindly asked me to address you because it's hard to shut me up a lot. So I just wanted to just give you the basics to begin with. The Kootenay Lake Hospital Foundation is the registered charity that fundraises to purchase equipment for Kootenay Lake Hospital, things that the Ministry of Health does not purchase for us. So thank you very much for letting us come. And this year, Kootenay Lake Hospital Foundation is fundraising to purchase a brand new state-of-the-art cardiac ultrasound machine. It's going to cost. We've committed to purchase to raise $98,000 for this piece of equipment. We have 3 qualified, certified cardiac ultrasonographers that work at Kootenay Lake Hospital. We are truly blessed. That's more than Trail Hospital has. And these gals are all just keen and can't wait for this new equipment to arrive. We currently are doing 95 cardiac echoes in our hospital. This new piece of equipment will double that amount per month. And currently we have about a 4-month waiting period for cardiac ultrasounds. And cardiac ultrasounds are dedicated to diagnose and follow up on cardiac abnormalities that patients might have. And waiting 4 months for an echo is very stressful. I was talking to the clerks before I left the hospital today, and in anticipation of this equipment starting to arrive at the first of the year, they've already started to book it, and they've reduced our wait period by 1 month already.
Wow.
So I'm really excited about that. The new machine, the room is all painted and decorated and ready for this equipment to arrive early in the new year, and we're very excited about that. We're about halfway towards our goal right now, and we're of course looking for end of year donations are always very big for us. We also are encouraging people to become monthly donors to the Hospital Foundation. We have a care plan that will allow us to automatically withdraw from a credit card or from a bank account, and just a very simple $50 donation monthly gives you a $600 charitable tax return at the end of the year. If that's something that's of interest to you, we've brought some cards that we can leave at the back if anybody wants to sign up, and we have some information about the cardiac ultrasound machine that we're purchasing as well, if anybody's interested in that.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, if someone's at home right now and wanting to donate, is there a way that they could go on? Is there a website or something that you have?
KLHF.org.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just a comment on that. I think through the chair, I just want to say thanks to both of you very much. You know, both of you have been involved for so long, and Brina, you've done a great job as to be an administrator and help to raise funds. And for people that are paying attention to tonight's meeting, it's critical that we support our foundation, because that can sometimes be the backbone of retention of our specialists and physicians and the folks that work at our hospital. It just can make life so much easier and helps us attract people to deliver healthcare in our community. So we have lots of options available for people to donate. On occasion, people just do their own bake sales. They just sell stuff and bring the money into the hospital foundation, bottle drives, all those kind of things happen on a regular basis. So it can be something real simple, and it doesn't have to be $100 or 10. It can be, you can just pick and choose, and it's made such a huge difference to our hospital. And I can recall we would not have had that expansion to the hospital without that drive for the CT scanner. That was the beginning of that huge development at our hospital. So, and all these pieces of equipment, regardless of what size they are, they're just critical in us retaining that hospital in this current state. So I just want to appeal to the community to find a little bit of help over the Christmas holidays, because as I said, this is a period when you depend on most of your fundraising around this time of year.
And you can drop off your bottles at the bottle drop at Tagum Shell or at the transfer station. We actually just accepted a check from the Nelson Leafs for $7,000 for 2019.
Yeah.
So.
Nice.
And that's probably the best kept secret in town, actually, that whole bottle exchange piece, because there's a trailer at Tagum Shell, there's the bottle drop at the transfer station at Lakeside Drive, but you can also go directly to the bottle depot and leave your bottles there in name of the hospital foundation. And I was amazed how much money was raised from that the first time I got involved in it. And it's just staggering. Just from your, Rick, you alone could raise probably, what, $1,000 a year on your bottles. So just your empties, take them in there, drop them off, and give them the hospital foundation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Please leave that information. Yes. Okay, thank you.
I know. I think they'll come back, but the roads are so probably people had to cancel.
What's that?
last minute.
Okay. So what? Yeah, it's been canceled. Canceled.
Sorry.
So while we're waiting, actually, Pamela, you're one of our returnees, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Much wiser than when I left.
Much wiser than when you left.
I appreciate that.
I'm also a returnee too.
You're a
Need to
returnee.
leave
I'm a
home
returnee.
just outside the high school. Walk out of high school, graduation, leave home,
Yeah,
come back to the airport, come home.
exactly.
And some of us never left. Climate change plan update. Kate Letizia and Pam is here as well. Kate is the climate change coordinator for the City of Nelson, is presenting in regard to the climate change action plan that is under development. The presentation includes background information and progress updates regarding the climate change action planning process and the climate change coordinator position. And I'm sorry that Keith left, because he would have got an education.
No.
Yes, he would have been good for him to be here. That was.
We'll send him the clip of this.
Yes.
Okay, so it's been 5 months now since Kate started with us back in July, so I thought it would be a good idea for us to come in and give you an overview of where we're at and what the plans are for 2020. So Kate's going to do a quick overview, and then we'll be here to answer any questions you might have on the plan.
Thanks, Pam. Is that good for sound? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Good evening, councillors, everyone. Thank you for having me. Thanks to Pam for your continued support. As Pam mentioned, I'm Kate Letizia, and I'm the climate change coordinator for the City of Nelson, and you already described all the reasons why I'm here, so we'll just get right into it. Some quick background. So, as you all know, the City of Nelson has a long history of leadership related to the development and implementation of actions to reduce emissions and build resilience to climate change. To date, we have taken a number of key steps, either guided by collaborative overarching policies like our path to 2040, and or due to emerging subject-specific needs or opportunities like some of the work that's been done recently by Fire and Rescue and our Public Works departments. That said, our context is changing in the face of rapidly shifting climatic conditions, both globally and locally. It is time for Nelson to take further action and to better coordinate our efforts to lessen our footprint and prepare for the increasing risks and impacts we may see as our climate continues to change. All right, so before we go forward and figure out how we're going to make that happen, which is exactly what Keith is looking for, a key part of my role has been to really take the careful time to take stock and do some analysis on what's already been done to date. And so you're going to see here on this slide some of the fundamental strategies, actions, partnerships that we've implemented in previous years, and from which I'll be drawing on as I move forward. And these are just some of the key highlights. They're not even, and this list is not including external actions that have also occurred that I'll speak to in a second. So you'll see projects ranging from plans and strategies, path to 2040, low carbon path, or some really key documents. The commitments that we've made nationally, provincially, and now locally with the West Cooney Eco Society and our 100% renewables commitment, and some of just highlights of recent infrastructure and programs that we've developed, including our very popular EcoSafe program, our forest fire fuel mitigation work, and just recently our early implementation of the STEP code. Actually, before I move on, it is important to note here that just because we are in the planning process, ongoing climate change work doesn't get paused in any way, shape, or form. So the work that we're already doing successfully will keep moving forward, and it will inform the plan development process and outcome, undoubtedly. Okay, so Climate Action Planning 2020. Looking to the future and to keep showing leadership, we have taken the preliminary steps toward developing a comprehensive and integrated climate change action plan, I should say. And this plan will simultaneously focus on improving our corporations and communities' capacity to mitigate GHGs and to adapt to changing climatic conditions. It will also act to consolidate, coordinate, and possibly amplify previous policies and actions, and then to develop new high impact and high feasibility actions to fill in any gaps that we uncover through this process and to address current or future risks that have yet to be addressed. You'll see in the photo there, I just have to mention quickly, it's just the icon of the Sustainable Development Goal focused on climate change. This is just a quick reminder that this type of work is being done to solve global and local challenges across the world. The creativity, knowledge, resources from all of society are necessary to achieve global climate change goals in every context. And the local government context is particularly well suited for this type of work. More than 70% of global climate change mitigation measures and up to 90% of adaptation measures are currently being undertaken by local government worldwide. Okay, so really quickly, just as a refresh, climate change mitigation, I'll be using these terms lots, refers to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. Adaptation refers to the reduction of risks and vulnerabilities to the effects of an already changing climate. So mitigation focuses on causes, adaptation, current and future impacts. Low carbon resilience, which you'll see there in the third point, that means tackling mitigation and adaptation concurrently with the focus as much as possible on co-benefits. And that is the approach that we will be taking. This approach is supported by a rapidly increasing body of evidence that is telling us appropriately responding to climate change requires a two-pronged approach that concurrently considers solutions focused on reducing emissions as well as responds to the climate change that is already in the pipeline. And I might add that working this way, it streamlines climate action resources, even such as the resources that are going to be used to develop this plan. We're developing one instead of two. And that's just the beginning. It allows for more efficient and collaborative policy alignment, and it opens up the door for pursuing multiple co-benefit opportunities in the realms of health, safety, livability, and the economy, for example. Here's just a snapshot of some of the many co-benefits that can emerge from an approach like this, and can emerge from opening the door to motivations and outcomes outside of the realm of what one typically associates with climate change policy and programming. So you've got reduced waste, green jobs, reduced temperatures, local control of power, improved health. Very quickly think of a great example of a green roof bylaw currently being implemented by the City of Toronto. Their major motivation is climate change, but they're expecting that the bylaw will also increase well-being through improved air quality and aesthetics, lead to cost savings by reducing energy demand for air conditioning, increase local food production and biodiversity, lead to greater seismic resilience, green jobs, and less waste, because green roofs last twice as long as conventional roofs, says the science and the architects. So that's just one simple example of the kind of exciting, dynamic actions and co-benefits we're going to explore with our plan. Okay. So the position, a quick update on the details here. I will remind you that the position that I'm currently undertaking, our climate change coordinator role, thanks Pam, is a 2-year position, July 2019 to July 2021, and it is funded through the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Climate Change Staff Grant Funding Program. And this program requires that grant resources are put toward initiatives that improve adaptation to local climate change impacts or reduce GHGs, and we're going to do both. In terms of the specific deliverables associated with this agreement and our contract with FCM, year one, we are contractually obligated to develop and facilitate a climate change steering committee, to develop and facilitate community engagement and consultation activities, a range of them, and to build and have approved a climate change plan. And this plan must include, at a minimum, an overview of current GHG monitoring and reduction projects, an outline of stakeholder consultations, an outline of advisable stakeholder consultations going forward, and recommendations for new climate change actions worth implementing in the short, medium, and long term for the City of Nelson. In year two, our overarching contractual requirements include working towards the implementation of all of these actions that we would like to see take place, and the systems and institutional changes that are going to support them and that are going to make sure that the changes that are made are sustainable. They would like to see progress reports to council, which I can promise to do, and they would like to see whatever your climate change steering committee looks like, and any other external activities that you're doing in the engagement realm continue. Finally, before you leave, you are meant to give a final presentation to council related to the medium-term shifts that need to happen to continue addressing climate change sustainably in the city. Okay, so progress to date. I'm going to quickly run you through a few of the high-level milestones that we've achieved throughout the planning process to date. To start, one of the exciting things about this process thus far is that we're not doing it alone. We're formally partnering with the organizations that you see up here on the slide to align and co-develop research, process, theory, targets, and to receive support, specifically in terms of data management and analysis. And there are also a number of local organizations I've been connecting with and attempting to coordinate with on a less formal basis, doing some engagement recently with Nelson at its best as an example. And like I keep saying, this is just the beginning. We're still, I'm always working on partnership work. An exciting milestone is we were awarded $20,000 from Vancouver Foundation as part of their systems change grant stream, and that's going to be utilized to launch sort of an intensive and sustained community engagement program, which will start as a series of workshops focusing on bringing together a very diverse representation of Nelsonites to learn, collaborate, and develop community-focused climate change solutions. This is a community plan, so we need to include that element. The idea here is not only will these diverse voices inform the plan, but as a part of taking, as a result of taking part in this activity, will also support the formation of new capacities, skills, relationships amongst actors in Nelson that wouldn't normally connect or engage deeply on climate change. So that's exciting about that too. In terms of taking stock internally, and that's been a major part of this work up front here in the first few months, as it's going to inform how we move forward, both from an asset and an issue lens. I have engaged with in a sort of preliminary stakeholder mapping exercise and over 40 one-on-one interviews with City of Nelson staff, RDCK staff, and local subject matter experts in various related fields. I've also undergone a thorough policy scan from the international to the local level and everything in between, and assessment of all of the previous and current climate change actions that have been undertaken by the City of Nelson to date, and sort of any other policy or action at the provincial, national, international level that will affect how we work here today. I've also developed a database of local climate change related data sources and gaps. When it comes to community, I've just started getting that ball rolling formally by hosting a super successful climate change system mapping workshop with over 50 local nonprofits, institutions, and private businesses. And they were representing a range of sectors and organizations, and they gathered to sort of crowdsource a detailed list of the climate change actions taking place outside of Nelson, and all of the resources and barriers that inform that work. And this picture you probably can't understand because it's way too tiny, is just a snapshot of some of the data, like piles and reams and piles that I still have yet to analyze, explaining what people in Nelson see as their sort of piece of the pie when it comes to solving climate change. And you can see here that it is so diverse and colorful, and there's so many different people and different organizations doing really different, interesting work on this issue. And that really needs to be understood and supported. I've also been engaging in ongoing community event attendance and guest speaking engagements. And that's both to share any information that could further develop capacity within community, and also to start to and continue to build strong relationships and trust between our organization and the community. All right, we've also, and this speaks to that sort of FCM requirement for a steering committee. An important milestone that's occurred is working with Kevin, our city manager, was to develop and launch City of Nelson's Working Group on Climate Action. So this is a diverse advisory group, including cross-departmental leadership from the City of Nelson, as well as core service providers from external agencies, to make sure that we included the representation of expertise related to public health, innovation and technology, economic development, regional sustainability, and social services. So you'll see with those logos there some of the organizations that are supporting this group. So this group's going to be meeting every 2 months at a minimum to guide and assist plan development and co-develop systems for implementing the plan in an integrated and coordinated way. Finally, as Pam knows, I'm a big research geek, and so I've been doing extensive research on the academic and best practice side, looking at leading institutions and cities. As you'll see from this chart here, the number of climate change papers published every year worldwide is growing exponentially. And it is a very fast-moving and emerging field of work. As I feel that it's critical that this plan be informed by local knowledge and data, as well as leading research and evidence from other trusted sources in leading cities, I am doing whatever I can to keep my finger on all these different pulses to inform our plan. Okay, to close, future milestones that you can expect to see. This is just, as you can see, a very high level sort of timeline of the phases of work that I'll be going through in order to complete this plan. By summer 2020, phase 1 wrapping up now, taking stock. Phase 2 is where I'll use some of the info derived from that stage to dive more deeply into community and into the research to really surface the specific challenges that we need to solve in Nelson. As you all have probably experienced or understand, solving climate change as a big, scary question is not necessarily going to move us to where we need to be. And so we'll be working sort of collaboratively to surface those specific climate change related issues and solution pathways that are the smartest for us to pursue as a community. Then we've got the explore and develop solutions phase. That's where the majority of community engagement will occur, and that's where we're going to work together to surface evidence-based, contextually appropriate solution ideas for those specific challenges. And finally, we'll design and hopefully approve the plan, and that's where we'll be selecting the highest impact, highest feasibility options, and the necessary pathways, systems, and processes that we'll need to use to implement them. Speaking in a little more detail about some of the milestones or the specific pieces of work that are going to occur, we still have yet to do a little bit more baseline data gathering and analysis, and that's specifically referring to the point below, procuring localized, up-to-date GHG inventory that looks at our community-wide situation, our future GHG trajectories, and our sort of a summary of climate projections for the area, as localized as we can get. We need to develop a risk and vulnerability assessment. We'll be undertaking ongoing stakeholder engagement, both targeted and broad community, some best practice research to inform our actions and implementation frameworks. Of course, the bulk and the exciting part is actually that target and action development work, and then drafting the plan and designing it. I'm going to dive a little more deeply onto engagement because it is such a critical part of this plan, and I know it's an interesting subject for people, and people want to support this part of the work. You can expect to see my taking part in continued community event attendance, guest speaking, and formal interviews. We'll be having those bi-monthly working group meetings, departmental one-on-ones as needed, and I think a lot of them are going to be needed. Online citizen surveys, and I forgot to add their thought exchanges. We're hoping to do 2 of those, one for baseline and then one to get feedback into the plan. Public events, where we're going to focus on shared problem identification, visioning, action development. We're hoping to do some public sounding boards to solicit ongoing feedback to be placed at several locations throughout Nelson, rec center, hockey games, mall, to sort of go to places that we might not normally be talking about climate change. Intensive action development workshops, like I mentioned, using that Vancouver Foundation funding and support. And then also a strategic action planning session with council. We're hoping for around May. Last slide, I promise, is just plan, content, expectations. So I can't make any promises yet in terms of what this plan is going to look like, but you can assume that these overarching elements will be included. Context and current performance, what have we done, how are we doing, where will we go next, if business as usual. So sort of telling that story of climate change in Nelson. Vision and guiding principles, hoping to develop those with staff and community. This plan will be anchored, I hope, by an inspiring and shared vision for the future and ways to get there. Action areas, these will be those specific issue areas that we need to surface that I recently addressed, and those will act as sort of further subject anchors for moving forward. Targets and goals, what needs to be achieved by when, and are these making sure that they're realistic and measurable and meaningful. And finally, actions, which that's the exciting part. Those are the specific stepping stones that are going to lead us to our low carbon resilient future. These actions may include any means to support previous or new goals to reduce GHGs and strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity. They may be policy related. They may be awareness related. They could be focused on institutional or community capacity building. They could be focused on developing sustainable funding mechanisms. They may be permanent or temporary, programmatic or infrastructural. A wide range of action types and sizes are being considered. So I'd just like you to keep that in mind. And finally, implementation framework. So what new procedures are needed for making these actions happen in an integrated way? And what are we already doing that we can shift or tweak to include a climate lens? And finally, yeah, and I guess that might be it. Okay, that's me.
Thank you. Councillor Anderson.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. So yeah, I think it looks great. My question to both you and Pam, and potentially Kevin and Colin, would be, while the plan is being developed and we're itching to go and make these bold moves, how do we implement change now without undermining the work that you're doing in the present?
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, yeah, I'm going to be excited that people want to do things, of course. I guess what I'd say to that is definitely I've been brought here to coordinate the actions that have already been done to look at the gaps and figure out what else we need to do going forward. And the planning principles that I feel are held by most people across this organization are definitely participatory and are sort of have me looking to current research and baseline data and to community and the local context to make decisions. And so I suppose that in terms of any bold actions or things that need to happen now, I hope that like the one consideration might be that planning process to a point is respected and understood by council, because we do want the community to, you know, surface these solutions and to own them and feel like this is their plan, and that it's not necessarily all just put down on them from the top. So I would keep that in mind. I don't think that doesn't mean we can't keep doing and improving current work while we plan, and I don't think it doesn't mean council can't show leadership in other ways. Certainly I could use some help with and your support when it comes to engagement and in you know the community best, so figuring out the different lenses and frames that are going to attract different kinds of Nelsonites to this engagement process, to this plan, to supporting it, would be extremely helpful, and I think could, you know, represent a pretty bold action. And finally, before I wrap up, I might say, you know, ultimately this is a pretty quick process, and the act of passing and resourcing, you know, a good, solid climate change plan, what I would say is also a fairly bold move. So I don't know, that's something to consider, like how to support this process and respect it while still, you know, keeping things going and diving into some of the work we're already doing, if that makes sense.
You know, that's great. I just want to kind of add to what Kate was saying. One of the reasons why we wanted to apply for this funding is that we were doing lots in all of the different departments in the city, but it was we weren't all that good at communicating amongst the different departments, so it was really hard to get kind of this comprehensive sense of what we were doing all together. And I think that for me was one of the really great things that could come out of this, is that we could document all in one place. Okay, this is what we're doing, and bring it all together. And from that point, then figure out, okay, well, what are the next steps that we need to take? So that was really my hope for this whole thing. And so I guess I would just say, you know, this plan is moving really fast. I mean, we have to have this, you know, pretty much in the bag by June or July. And so I think it's a really good opportunity to just kind of step back, take stock of what we're doing, and really think strategically about where we want to go in the future.
And I'll just add that, you know, I think as both Kate and Pam identified, we have some really solid stuff in place that lots of communities are trying to get in place. And, you know, the EcoSave program is a good one. And if you can create momentum in the community around a program in place, hopefully you have those same folks that step up for the next thing. So I think that's a real solid foundational piece you can get. If we can get participation rates up in a program like that, then you get, you know, likely those same folks that will step up for that next thing. You don't have to build that group again. So I think that's what we can do in the interim, build that solid group up there that are participating at a high, we get that absorption rate that we want to do, and that will just build on the next program.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you very much. It's really exciting. I think what you know, I've gone through my own journey over the last couple of years with climate issues, and you know, some of it is fairly scary when you look at the science. I have sort of come to a place where the opportunities, I think that's, for me, that's where the real buy-in happens, is the opportunities. Because yes, the science can be quite numbing in a way, or it can just stop you from acting in some ways. But I think when we look at these issues through opportunities and what we can do as a community, and getting, as Pam says, getting ourselves organized in a single kind of direction, so that each action we're taking really has clear effects. I really feel like that is the kind of the only option, because otherwise we're just kind of all over the place. And I've noticed, you know, out in the community, people really want to see us as a city evolve in that direction and having real direct action. So I think this is why I'm really like very hopeful for this, because we can say that we hired somebody who worked closely with our staff, and we've directed ourselves, we got ourselves going in one direction, and we're taking each action we're doing very what's the word, directly and focused. So thank you for that. My only piece that I like to add is the speed at which this unfolds. I know you already are moving at speed because, as Pam said, but a lot of the climate science is saying we really have to move with speed. So I would just say inserting that into how this unfolds is that it's not something 20 years out. It's in the next grouping of years, 5, 10 years, we have to continue this path, this evolution. So that would be my only comment is, as you're working this plan out, that I'm hoping that we can immediately start the plan, as you said, and continue with speed into the future with it. Thank you. Thank you very much for your work.
Councillor Lachtenberg.
Through the chair. Kate, thanks for this. Great work. I enjoyed going through it, and I look forward to the full plan. So I recognize we asked you to do a lot under a really tight time frame, but I think the work you've done so far is excellent. So well done. I do have a question, but for Kevin. And in the interest of
with a new strategy
right now, just in the interest
Get
of
it in 2 seconds.
Will they? No, it was in the interest of speed and saying something you just mentioned earlier. It's the EcoSave program.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear some of your thoughts or your plan for how we do accelerate that. Like, how can we, starting tomorrow, get the EcoSave program moving at twice the speed? And if it means asking council to support you on a communication front, that would be great. But I'd just like to hear your thoughts on that.
We've had some discussion about this. I think we need to bring Carmen in and sit down with her and find out, what are those things that have been really successful, that have, got people to participate? What are those things that are barriers to that, and really come up with a strategy? How do we break down those barriers? How do we take advantage of those opportunities? You got a lot of folks in the community that are quite interested in this, and I think you need to rally those folks and get them talking to neighbors, get them educated. I think we can continue to work at the provincial, federal level to improve those subsidies that are out there. Because from hearing from Carmen for a number of years, when those subsidies are strong, she gets good participation. When they are quite weak, and then less so. So we've talked about that. Let's bring Carmen in. Let's get a list of what's been successful, what isn't, and rally folks. My note here that they will get in a few seconds is maybe make a little bit of a smorgasbord of the 5 to 8 things that we are presently doing. What's our current participation rates? What targets do we want to set? What's working, what doesn't? Everything from the on the mitigation side is fire smarting your homes and those things like that. So we got various different staff promoting. We have our ambassador programs for water and some of the other resilience things. We have people in our community, our firefighters knock on many doors every day. So I think we have a core group of city staff that actually participate. You have your library that interacts with people. I think you pull all those people together and everybody has the same message, same material, and getting it into as many hands. Every time someone comes into development services, there's an opportunity to influence how something gets renovated, built, etc. So,
great, thank you.
Thank you,
Councillor Page.
Oh, sorry.
I'll get on this bandwagon of thanking Kate and Pam for their excellent work, and Kevin, you as well, for rallying a working group. My question, I'm going to weave it through the NAADP work and stuff that we're doing there, is preparing the community for the business continuity planning that they touched on, is about making sure that businesses, both from an economic perspective and a climate perspective, are set up and right-sized and have the appropriate resources to handle themselves if they go through an emergency that is all the more has all the more potential. But it really speaks to the opportunity, like by putting our businesses through that additional rigor, they get stronger, and because they're stronger, they're more able to be resilient in the times of a climate emergency or a localized emergency because of the realities that are shifting underneath our feet. What's really good about that from the business community side is NAEDP and Community Futures working on a plan that's for that sector allows them to come together and actually make themselves resilient in a structured way. And we had a number of situations even just tonight where people have suggestions, they have things they'd like to see changed, and we see it all throughout the community. With this working group that is being established or is about to be established, is there a potential for council to start redirecting such requests to that working group and get feedback on which things are going to have a big kick, which are going to have a little kick, instead of, and give a sense for those community members of somewhere that we can send things where they'll be evaluated on the value of what they will kick back in terms of solving this problem, this versus, you know, us one-offing chickens around town or something.
We're just gonna plaster Kate's email out there everywhere. No, I'll let you think.
That's a good question. I have to do some thinking about, like, I'm absolutely open to figuring out a place for these ideas, and many of them very good and contextualized and well researched, not all of them, for these ideas to be heard and assessed and considered.
Well, lots of them will be captured through the public engagement.
Exactly.
Right, and so, I mean, I think the thing we need to think about is that the only place we want to capture them, or is there just this kind of repository somewhere that people can just kind of connect into?
Yeah, if it's okay, I'd like to do some thinking about that because I think it's a great suggestion. I just want to think a bit more. What's that?
I said I think the right timing of it is important.
Yeah.
Because we do have a lot already in place, and you're talking public consultation starts in 2 months, right?
Yeah, 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Well, right.
I guess just supplemental is that coming from the technology space and from the software development phase, there's definitely, like, when you're dealing with having a product built, being able to capture all of what's happening when it's happening, so you can come back to it later, is part of what you do to build that momentum and find those clusters of situations where people want focus to happen on. So
agreed.
Even just having somewhere to capture it and rank it later.
There will absolutely be at least one, if not many, avenues for ideas to surface and be captured on a continuous basis. So, like, that's absolutely being considered. In terms of funneling through the working group and that process, that's just something I'd like to think about further. Yeah, but be assured that there will be numerous opportunities for people to surface these ideas and these specific ideas for their specific situations, and they will absolutely be captured and not lost.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks, Kate. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. Thanks, Kate. I was just saying to Councillor Anderson there, John F. Kennedy beat me to the punch here, but when he said it's not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And I find that, as an example, we talked about the ECO program, which has been around now for how long, Kevin?
Oh, over 10 years.
10 years, right? And to be honest with you, I think we had pretty good uptake in the early days, but overall, I don't think it really was as successful as it could be. And if every person on the street that talked to me about climate change actually took advantage of the EcoSave program, we would reduce carbon dramatically, because we had that graph from Cameron showing us the housing stock in Nelson and the amount of carbon that's being lost through the emittance of carbon, because people don't insulate, weather stripping, some very, very simple little pieces of the puzzle there that could be done to help every day. So I would just put out to the community that are challenging us, because I think as a council and staff, I think, yes, there's more we can do, but I think we're actually on a pretty good path, and we are doing maybe not as much as people would expect, but we're not stepping away from it either. I'm very much committed to moving forward with reducing our carbon in our particular operation. But going beyond that, then we're asking for goodwill for people to climb on board, beyond that point. There's only so far you can go as local government without becoming a simple dictatorship in getting people to buy in. And then there's the ability to pay. And to be truthful with you, the biggest disappointment I have about the carbon tax is not that we have it, but it's where the money's going to go. I actually believe the carbon tax could have been the catalyst for making some real change, other than being a slush fund for whatever government's in power to give each household $650 a year. That really isn't going to make that much difference to their lifestyle for the most part, and probably isn't going to do anything to reduce their carbon. And the companies that are going to be charged for carbon will just simply pass that on to us anyway in the form of higher prices for gasoline or products or whatever the case may be. So I would love to see at some point that the Federation of Canadian Municipalities get on that bandwagon and redirect that carbon, or at least a portion of it, fund that's going to come in, that slush fund that's going to come into the government, and have it redirected into, say, any of our communities and say, look, we will re-insulate your house because this is going to be billions and potentially trillions of dollars in the next 15 or 20 years. But I want to touch on a couple of things that you have in your report here. Unfortunately, one of them in particular is a little hard to read, but the piece on waste, on the waste side, Kate, and we're having that discussion. We had a discussion earlier tonight about waste, and I think we're at a crossroads here. I really do, and this may be our opportunity with this particular group and with the work that you're doing to actually make this change that's necessary to shift how we manage waste in so many areas, but how we're collecting it. So we have actually built a system that we have told our population, create as much waste as you want, we will come and pick it up and we will take it away. Right? I believe there's got to be a new way of doing that. There's got to be, and you've identified it in this document here that I'm sure I doubt you wrote yourself, you probably found in your research on the waste side. It's in your presentation from Banff Environmental Master Plan.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
actually, I did write that one. I co-wrote it.
Well, that's even better.
With a number of colleagues.
That's even better because within that, you talk about a number of things around waste that really stimulate my imagination. One of them is incineration. As an example, waste to energy, like that's identified several times in here. You also talk about, as an example, and we've been speaking about it a little bit here. I'm sorry, but the text is so small.
Yeah, I apologize. It was sort of just meant to be a snapshot example.
As an example, Banff has 48 community recycling bins within a 5-minute walk, right, of any residence in the community. Like, I believe that's a terrific idea because now we're not going to everybody's front door for the recycling. They have a responsibility. Now, when I take responsibility for something, I'm going to make damn sure I'm doing it right. So if I'm going to carry that flipping bag all the way down to that little place and put it away, I'm going to make sure I'm doing it right. So right now, there's too much opportunity to do it wrong and actually get away with it, right? And have it go to China, and then they tell us to go fly a kite. They're sending it back, and now we have to change our direction. The other thing I noticed here was in that Banff one, you talk about generating electricity through waste, right? And the town of Banff has 48, sorry, I touched on that, but even their composting is centralized. They have a number of composting. Come on, Kate, you wrote this thing.
No, I know that. These, you might be looking at the actions that we are hoping they will do.
Right, okay.
Not that they've done yet. So when you say that...
But the ideas are,
yes.
I think the ideas are fantastic.
Thank you.
I actually witnessed the centralized composting in Europe, in Croatia, in Italy, in Belgium, in Holland, in recently in Portugal and Spain, where composting is taken to a central location within 5 minutes of a person's home, and you're not picking it up at the front door, but once a week or once every 2 weeks, a vacuum truck comes along, sucks it out, and takes it to the compost place. So what I'm trying to say is, I hope we would take this opportunity to look at waste different than what we're currently doing. Because right now, it's a black hole for money, and it means you dig a big hole and bury it, and then you go find a new hole and you bury that. And you even talk in here about methane extraction from landfill sites. And that's an opportunity that we're missing. We're not even thinking about it, let alone doing it. So, I don't know. I don't know if I should stop or go away, but really, I honestly think we need to stop the horses in their tracks. And whether it's on the whole climate change thing and bite off a bigger chunk, but definitely on the waste side. There's an area that we have an opportunity to truly make a difference, probably in the next year or 2 years, in my opinion, for what it's worth.
Yeah. Understood, thank you. Yeah, and I'm fairly certain from some preliminary engagement that's already occurred, it's an issue very important to community, and that we're going to hear from them a lot too. So it's going to be.
And supplemental, I just wanted to add a couple of things. In focus groups or groups that you pull together, we had a presentation from Mercer here as an example at our last committee of the whole meeting. And I just wrote down quickly.
They run Celgar. Mercer runs Celgar.
In Castlegar, yeah.
Castlegar.
You have Tech is another company, SPL, Terrace Construction, and the interior lumber manufacturers. All of those companies now are being pushed towards buying carbon offsets or some type of carbon pricing. And they're all going to be looking for people to talk to try and change their operations in different ways. And I noticed on your sponsorship page here, as an example, there may be an opportunity to speak to those companies. Just because they're outside our community doesn't mean they wouldn't be interested in this program.
Okay.
So I would just suggest to you that you might potentially want to look for them. And I'd also appeal to you with your focus groups that you have a good mix of people on there. I think it's critically important, because when we're having this conversation about the climate, it's not good enough to be sitting with like-minded people, because you don't get good results with like-minded people. You get good results with people that are going to challenge you to think differently or come up with new ideas. And for me, I think it's really important that you have a good mix around the table to make sure that whatever comes out of this is going to be reflective of what the community wants, but also that we get the best result we can in Nelson.
Yeah. Agreed. No, I absolutely agree, and I can assure you that that is a top, if not the top priority in our engagement efforts on this plan. So
thank you.
It is the way we're going to go.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you all.
Pam, Kate, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Betcha. Okay, do we have any council reports?
Only the one that I know of. We're heading up to your place in a few minutes. So.
No late items? Late items? None? Having seen none? Really, dude? Can I have a motion to adjourn, please? Councillor Page, Councillor Lochtenberg, all in favor?
Thank you. Thank you, Sitting Mayor.